podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, basically, all we're here to do is just visit. I know you and I meet once a month, and this isn't in place of that, by the way.
Okay.
I'm still going to contact you about that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, I don't know, there just comes a point where I realized, and it comes from meeting with you, our family gatherings, people sit around and share stories, and we all bust a gut laughing. We went up last summer. Was it last summer? It wasn't this past one, the one before. We went up to the Michigan Himebook clan, and we basically, we'll edit clan out, because I know that's not a good word anymore, where we visited with all of them, and just got reminded about how stories are so much a part about family heritage. And so yeah, so there's a part of me that's like, I tend to be the person running around with the camera at family events taking photos,
Yeah.
and then there was a part of me that's like, well, what if we could try and do something like that with memories? So yes, we had Peter in here last time. He was our guinea pig, talking about everything from jazz music to how horrible his childhood was. Apparently, I'm kidding. No, he didn't have that many complaints. So yeah, so I wanted to kind of bring in the OG, the original grandfather.
Okay. That's not what
I know, I know. But yeah, because let's be honest, without you, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is kind of your fault if you think about it.
Right.
Anyway, I wanted to start with, let's say you were a pastor at the same church for how many years at Redeemer?
35 years at
35.
Redeemer Church in Atlanta.
Wow. And how long were you a full-time pastor?
I was a full-time pastor for exactly 50 years.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay. So I'm curious about stuff like that. My dad told me I need to ask you questions about Grant's tomb and studying music theory, because apparently these are stories
Yes.
that people need to know.
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to tell us Grant's tomb, and then I have some other questions to ask you? Because I know what Grant's tomb is, but obviously, what's your story?
Grant's tomb is the name of the house that I stayed in Wheaton, Illinois, when I was at Wheaton College. I was there for 2 years. The home was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Grant, and Mrs. Grant ran such a tight ship. She had about 10 college students living in her house that we called it Grant's Tomb. And one of the memories that I have, I slept on the top bunk, and I guess I was a bit sick or something, and my roommate brought me a strawberry milkshake. There was a rule that Mrs. Grant had that there was to be no eating or drinking in our rooms. So here I am in the top room drinking my strawberry milkshake, and
What a rebel.
there's a knock on the door, and Mrs. Grant comes in, and before she sees me, I said, what am I going to do? So I thought quickly, and I tipped the milkshake over so that the contents fell on the floor, and I put the cup back under the covers, and I went up, leaned over the I don't know if Mrs. Grant ever caught on to that or not.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And this is while you were studying to be a pastor, or?
I was just trying to get through college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then when you got to seminary, you had to put all those ways behind you.
Oh, yeah.
And where did you go to seminary?
I went to Westminster Seminary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
We visited there once, right?
We did, yes.
Family
Our
trip?
family on a family trip. That was a great experience for me to have the family
Yeah.
here at the seminary.
Yeah, I have photos on my phone, because don't we all?
Yes.
But I do remember Dad almost having a conniption fit driving in the city. So
Yes, yes.
Cities that predate vehicles
Yes.
are not necessarily well constructed for vehicles.
Yeah.
See, Mary Love had warned me about that. She goes, we were driving to California, and then we were going to take a plane back. And she goes, now, Dad gets really, really anxious when he drives in the city. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can handle that.
That's another level of stress.
It was another level of stress. To the point where we pulled over and Mom took over.
There you go.
And it was a whole lot easier at that point. But it was quite fun. So yes, I know the reference you're speaking of. That's fun.
Okay.
That's fun. Being an outsider coming into the family, that was fun.
Yeah.
Now, you were an only child, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you didn't get into half the trouble that those of us with siblings got into, I'm assuming.
I will plead the fifth on that.
Okay, all right, so the milkshake behavior predates college. Okay.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, I was an only child too, so you're it. You can't blame it. It was him.
Yeah.
You do that, your parents walk in, it was him.
Yeah.
They might need to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, fair points have been made. Okay, so tell me about your parents.
Okay. My parents were both born and raised in Baltimore. My father's mother died when he was about 9 years old, so he and his brother were raised by his father alone.
Wow.
His father was gone most of the time. He worked for a company that made ice cream. It was kind of a little store.
Ooh.
And he was the ice cream maker.
Oh.
And there were some strange eating habits. Sometimes my grandfather, my father's father, would bring home a whole chocolate cake and a good bit of ice cream. And on a Sunday night, the two brothers would split the cake in half, eat the whole cake along with the ice cream. But somehow they made it through their childhood.
Is this where you get your love of ice cream, by the way?
Yes,
it's like a
must
staple.
be, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember every night, there was at least a scoop of ice cream.
Yeah, yes,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a fun tradition. I'm not knocking the tradition.
Yeah, right.
So, an eggnog,
Down
too.
to the grandkids, that's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, father's father. What about your mother?
My mother grew up in a Lutheran family in Baltimore. Was faithful in her attendance to the Lutheran church, but outside of the church, there was God brought someone into her life who explained to her the gospel, and apparently she had never personally believed in Christ. So this person helped her to become a Christian, and that was her story of her conversion, and she told that to me. Yeah.
Wow. I remember the Entenmann's Donuts. Is that a thing that I should be remembering?
Say it again.
Entenmann's Donuts.
Okay, yeah.
When she lived in y'all's house.
Okay.
Like, I was very, very young. Terry has more vivid memories, my older brother, but I do remember Entenmann's Donuts.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a legit memory I have then. Okay.
I think so,
okay.
yes.
Because every time my wife will tell you, anytime we go on a vacation, we try not to have donuts in the house. As a general rule of thumb, because they'll be devoured. But whenever we go on vacation, one of the staples of vacation is I insist we go and we get a box of Entenmann's Donuts.
Yes.
And like I'm buying it, rationing it out day by day. I'm like, all right, we're going this many days. That means each of us gets this many donuts. Only downside of us potentially having more kids is I'm like, I mean, there's less donuts when we go on vacation. It's worth it, but still.
Okay.
When you got 3 boys, they don't last long. Now you're saying, what are they called?
Entenmann's?
Entenmann's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, like Ents, as in...
Is it like the box ones?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You buy at the supermarket?
Yeah, they're Kroger, they have their own little thing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I get the regular chocolate kind. They also have like the cake crumble.
Cake crumble.
Where it's like mini donuts on top of donuts.
So that's why Mary Love likes those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a family thing. I'm telling you. It's a weird tradition that we all sort of latch onto, similar to eggnog. I remember, because you and I both have a passionate love of eggnog. In fact, I have a carton of eggnog in that fridge right now that I need to bring home.
Mary Love's polished off 3 already?
Do I have a memory, tell me if this is true, if you feel like you've ever done this, where you used eggnog instead of milk for your cereal? Did you do that one morning?
Occasionally I've done that. This morning I put eggnog in my coffee.
Yep. The legend. I was in the drive-thru, kid you not, at Starbucks, And I asked them, because they used to serve eggnog, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
hey, because I was going to surprise you and be like, get you a coffee. They want
Yeah.
coffee with some eggnog in it, and they informed me that they're probably like not going to have eggnog this season.
Oh, no, they banned. They're done.
Really?
Mary Love asked about it last year, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And we were going to boycott it. we have it now.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
huge fan of eggnog. When did you get, and this is going to be totally my own personal selfish questions, but for anyone who would like to ask him different questions, make your own podcast. When did you first discover Louis L'Amour?
Oh, yes. I was a pastor in Atlanta, and one of the elders of the church said, have you ever read anything by Louis L'Amour? I had never heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
But we picked up a couple of copies of his books, and I was hooked from the very beginning, and almost every night before I fall asleep, I read a few pages of Louis L'Amour.
Really? Still?
Still, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I find it very relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
And gets my mind off the activities of the day. And,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, so, wow. Okay, so to catch you up,
Thank you.
I'm
about to say for that.
Louis L'Amour is an author, primarily Western, but he writes mystery. You know, he's written some medieval stuff all over the place.
Yes.
But primarily Western. The Sackett family is like a story of this family that comes over from England, and then the Wild West. It's really fascinating. But yeah, really easy read, really active imagination, fun adventures. There's a little bit of language every now and then, but there's nothing horrendous. But I remember every summer we'd go on family vacation, and you and I would make our pilgrimage to Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
And always come back with a couple Louis L'Amour books.
Yes.
It was so much fun.
Yes.
And I remember because I started writing short stories, and they suddenly became Westerns. They were always like medieval, you know, King Arthur or Robin Hood, and then suddenly they were Westerns and saloons, and my mother was like, why are you writing about all this violence? And I was like, is that Louis L'Amour? I'm like, yes, it is. That's not what I said, but yeah, okay, cool. So we've caught everyone up. That was a selfish question I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Okay, so that answers the question of what you do to relax them, because you're a pastor, and is it hard, this is, I guess, pivoting more into the spiritual realm, is it difficult when your job involves being in the Bible? Is it difficult to also, I guess it's more of an open-ended question, I should have rethought this. How did you find that balance, or do you feel like you ever did find a balance between I'm studying the scriptures because it's my job, and I'm studying the scriptures because I want to spend time with the risen Christ, I want to spend time with God? Like, was that just an easy, you know, cohesive merging that happened where you kind of found that balance, or did you find it to be a struggle at times?
Okay, when I was in high school, God led me to a church that had a Reformed persuasion, and there were some older fellows in the church there, a few years older than I was, who kind of mentored me, and one of them said, you have a quiet time. I had no idea what that was. But he got me started in just reading a bit of the Bible and praying each morning before I started the day's work. And then that carried through at Wheaton College. And afterwards, later, after seminary, I became involved with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And that's a ministry to college students, and they have a strong emphasis on a personal quiet time with God alone each day. That strengthened that effort. So by God's grace, through the years I have been able to maintain having a daily quiet time almost every day, and still do that.
That's wonderful. And do you do that with just you and the Bible? Do you have like a devotional book that you go through sometimes? A bit of both? Is it just, again, like there's different, I hear people using different methods.
Yeah, I deliberately change what I'm doing about every 3 months.
Ooh, that's clever.
And I remember, it goes from extremes. I remember 1 3-month period, I was reading 1 verse a day. And that went on for 176 days. Wow. Because the verse I was reading was from Psalm 119. And now, currently I'm reading through the book of Psalms with the help of a commentary by a man named Christopher Ash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the best. It's not only the best commentary on the Book of Psalms that I've. This is 4 volumes. Best commentary on Psalms I've ever seen. This is the best commentary on any book of the Bible that I personally have ever seen.
That is high praise.
And when I wake up in the morning, often the first thought in my mind, oh goody, I get to read another chapter in Christopher Ash on the Psalms. So I was up to Psalm 52 this morning.
Okay, wow. Yeah. Now I'm curious though, you said you were reading a verse a day. That wasn't just you reading a verse and going, well, I'm done, you know. Did you have commentaries, or like were you reading a verse and then praying through it? Like what was the process?
I think I was using a book that had the one verse from that psalm, and then maybe a short paragraph about that verse.
Okay.
And then I would have a shorter prayer time too.
Okay.
How many books would you say you've read in your lifetime?
Oh, I really
rough guess. If you, I would guess what over 200.
Oh, for him, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I would think 1,000 maybe. Yeah. That would just be 11 books a year.
Oh, well,
that's right. Just a math guy over here.
I'm good if I can read one every 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm very curious. So you were a pastor. You are a pastor, but you were a full-time pastor. You also had not just kids, but like multiple kids, and amongst them you have my mother. And I love my mother, but I also know, like, because I'm her son, we're both very dramatic, and that's not. I can only imagine her as a child. You've seen my daughter, like,
yes,
and I definitely have been like, I wonder if that's like part of myself and my mother that's like definitely manifesting itself in the very dramatic, which again, it's wonderful. And I'm not saying that from any lofty perch. I'm the same kind of person. But how did you make time for your personal devotions, your personal walk with God? You have to be husband and father, and then you have to be basically a shepherd of the flock that God has entrusted you with. Like, how did you ration your time so that you were still pursuing Grandma, you were still pursuing the Lord, not in that order, of course, you were still making time for your kids, and you were making time for your flock, which again, every flock is made up of broken people, like all of us are. So dealing with hurting people, like, I'm just curious, like, what was your structure? Because you seem like a very structured person.
Well, I remember after I had been in the ministry for a while, and after we had the 3 children, my mother confided to me once that she had been praying for quite a while that as a pastor, I would not neglect my children. And I think I can honestly say that God helped me to really spend time with them and try to relate to them in a meaningful way, and to Jean also.
What were things that you had to say no to in order to make that happen? Again, part of this is selfish because I'm in my 30s with a young child and looking to have more, and so I'm realizing more and more it's learning to say no to good things for the sake of the best. The good being the enemy of the best, especially in regards to time with family.
Yeah, I was about to say just to jump on that, like that's I'm very curious too because I'm a band director, so I have after school rehearsals. I have parade. I did a parade. Literally came from a parade today, and the work-life balance is hard for me to kind of figure out too. So I'm curious, how did you do work-life balance?
Well, I tried to be faithful every morning to studying, and every afternoon to visiting for the church. And some evenings were involved also. But I always took a full day off every week.
Which day?
Yeah, and that was helpful. And then we would have family vacations, which were always good times as well.
Yeah.
So,
Which day would you take?
Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had a seminary professor who advised that. He said when he was a pastor that he found that on Monday morning he still had a little energy left over from Sunday. So he put that in getting ready for the next Sunday. And by Tuesday he was ready to really relax.
That didn't make you panic for Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's for me, because I have all my rehearsals on Wednesday. I'm afraid if I took off Tuesday. But it makes sense. I definitely hit Monday, and I'm like, I don't know, I still have some adrenaline left. I'm like, okay, cool. The next thing, let's get everything set up for the next service.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, did you find when you went on vacations, I guess also, we need to explain to our audience, there was a period in time where we didn't all have these little magic boxes that we carried with us where anyone could get in touch with us anytime. And so I was about to ask you, like, was it easier for you to go on vacations and unplug, but then I realized,
there was no plug.
Like, I can imagine it would be much easier because you literally weren't bringing your phone with you.
Yeah, when I was on vacation, I didn't think much about my work. I just enjoyed the time off.
See, right there, I'm so envious of that, and that's wonderful. Like, even my dad, who uses a flip phone, and I'll call it, my mother will answer and be like, he's working in the garden, and I'm like, good for him, you know? so happy.
I was telling someone yesterday, they were asking about Shepherd Tour, and I said, well, you know, if you email him, he'll get back with you, but he only has certain times he'll go sit at the computer. If he's not at the computer, he will not answer your email because he does not have a smartphone. You know, like, really? Like,
and he'll send me emails with the entire message in the title.
Yep.
Like there's no email. It's just the heading, and it says Lunch Thursday ? And I'm just like, Dad, that's a text. Anyway, okay. So you mentioned Christopher Ashe, and I'm curious, in your years of ministry, if you could point people to like your top shelf. I'm not going to say give me 5 because like, you know, or 10, whatever. But like, what are the books that come to mind? I know for me, one of them was like, that was really powerful for me, and it was Knowing God, Janet Packer. I feel like that's also aged well, but it was really moving. There was one for me, like, I don't know how it aged as well, but it was Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. I think it's where I was in life. But for you in ministry, like, what were books when you think of, I can absolutely recommend those, that really helped you develop your skills, not just in preaching, but your love for God's Word and understanding it?
Okay. When I was in high school, someone put me onto a book by a man named Lorraine Bettner called The Reformed Doctrine of Predestination.
Ooh.
And that was all new to me, but he convinced me of that doctrine. But then, a few years later, I came across J.I. Packer's little book, Evangelism and the Sovereignty of God. So I've pretty much all through my life tried to keep a balance between, you know, it is God who saves, it's God who elects, it's God who regenerates dead people who are spiritually dead. And salvation is of the Lord, but at the same time, God uses means, and He uses human means to bring people to Himself. So there is a real connection between evangelism and election, I think.
Sure. And that's a tough tightrope to walk, too. Like,
it is, yes.
The belief in God's sovereignty should embolden the church to witness because, A, we can't mess it up. In other words, like, however it goes, you know, we're flawed, but it's God's Spirit who does any of the changing of hearts.
Yes.
So absolutely, go out and boldly profess and proclaim the gospel because you know that it's God who's going to do the changing of hearts anyway. You can't mess that up.
Yeah.
And the second we think we can add to it through our own prowess or, you know, clever arguing, then we get in the way, and we're technically trying to save people to ourselves or our own version of what we believe Christ to be.
Yeah.
What would you say is probably your? Well, this might be too edgy for a podcast. What would you think would be your greatest concern or, I guess, if you look at the church writ large, and we can say the church in America, because I know that, like, the church around the world, they all have their own different struggles and things they're dealing with, but as you look around the American church, do you see anything that makes you hopeful, anything that makes you a little trepidatious? Like, what are the pros and cons that you're seeing at play right now?
Well, I belong to a denomination that came out of a what is now a very liberal denomination. The Orthodox Presbyterian Church came out of the United Presbyterian Church, or the PCUSA, back in 1936. And that whole struggle with modernism and liberalism and the denial of the supernatural in Scripture. And so I think the burden of my heart through the years has been for churches to remain faithful to Scripture, having a high view of Scripture and teaching it in its fullness.
So you said that the denial of spiritual. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's
supernatural. Supernatural.
Yeah, the denial of the supernatural. That Jesus did not walk on water. Jesus did not raise the dead. Jesus did not heal the sick.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Jonah was not in a whale.
Got it. Don't tell my daughter that. She is a huge fan of Jonah.
Yes.
Like, even this morning, because it's Saturday, so that's Cartoons Day. She wanted to watch the VeggieTales Jonah movie, so we started that. And my wife was like, "Can we please watch something else?" I was like, "No, the people have spoken." I was like showing her all the different VeggieTales episodes. She's like, "Jonah," and I was like, "Okay, Jonah it is." And there's worse things for her to like. But yeah, okay. So slight pivot. What would you say is a favorite childhood memory?
A favorite childhood memory. Okay. I think it's the day when Jay Adams, he wasn't a doctor then, Jay Adams brought me out of Mormonism. I came within half an inch of converting to Mormonism when I was about 14 years old.
Really?
Yeah. And I was going to a Methodist church where the pastor didn't have a clue as to how to help me with that. And God in His providence brought Jay Adams into my life, and he explained to me, he said to me, he sat me down, he said, what does Mormonism teach about how to be saved? And I said, well, we have to save ourselves. What does the New Testament say about how we have to be saved? I said, well, I'm not sure. He said, it's by grace. Do you know what grace is? I'm not sure. Yeah, he says it's God's unmerited mercy, His undeserved kindness to us. And he said, you see the difference there? And then Jay Adams was very direct, and he said, Tom, you have to make a choice. What's your choice going to be? And God was working in my heart, and I said, well, I'm come down on the side of the New Testament.
Wow.
And I severed my relationship with Mormons at that point.
Wow. And Jay Adams, is it safe to say he would have believed or subscribed to predestination?
Very much so, yeah.
And yet he wasn't afraid to say, you need to make the choice.
Exactly right.
See, it's possible.
Yeah, right.
You can believe God is sovereign and still.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Exactly. Well,
wow.
Well said.
Well, it's funny because my next question was going to be, tell us about your conversion. I just got 2 for 1 in that one.
Okay.
So
I had no idea that you were close to Mormonism.
Yes.
You may have told me that. I don't know what I have to
I don't remember telling you that. So
it's the magic underwear. Never mind. Look it up later. It's fine.
I think I know.
We'll cut that. That's fine. Oh goodness. So I know you went to the beach a lot as a kid. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Now wait a minute. Beach. How do we define the word beach? Because I've learned that's a different connotation for some people. For some people, the beach is the lake.
Oh no,
yeah.
no.
I think
ocean. The ocean.
Yes, the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, Atlantic Ocean. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Mine's the
Pacific Ocean. Oh well.
Yes,
okay.
Gulf, so.
Okay.
So
which beach would you all go to?
Ocean City, Maryland.
Okay. What was the best time of year to go there?
Well, July or August.
Okay.
Yeah.
How cold would it get in Maryland?
Hot
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, the weather would be hot, but the water would be just right. You know, you weren't too cold, weren't too hot. It was just nice.
Well, you definitely passed on a love for the ocean to your family.
Yeah.
Even though my mother married a guy who prefers log cabins, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I tried to pass that on too. This past summer, we made a point to go to a place near the ocean and then to a place in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I'm more of a mountains guy, but it's like there's this part of me that's like, no, I want my daughter to grow up around the ocean too.
Yes.
Because she can make her own decision. You know?
Yeah.
And she really enjoys the
Yeah.
ocean. She does not like sand.
Okay.
She'll be like, Daddy, hold me. So like she just wants me to pick her up and set her in the ocean.
Yeah.
As long as she can get some, like, I feel you, you know?
Yeah.
But so when you had kids and you go to the ocean, this is another. I have all these selfish questions. Sorry. Like, what did you have to do? And I say that because, like, when you go on a vacation with kids, you're not always on vacation.
Nope.
Because you're trying to keep these kids from killing themselves.
Or each
just
other.
Being reckless.
Yeah.
So, were you just blessed with wonderfully behaved children? Or, like, how did that go?
I have no memories of having problems with our kids at the beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, go Mom.
Yeah.
Go Aunt Rhonda. Go Uncle Paul.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What were the car rides like? I know what ours are like.
There were some squabbles once in a while. Yeah. There was my older daughter telling my younger daughter that a cow was another animal, and she believed that.
Wait. Explain this. What's it? Say again. A cow was.
I'm trying to think of the other animal. That a cow was a sheep or something. And
we'll have Aunt Rhonda on. We're going to have to ask her a question.
Yeah, right, yeah.
What lies were you telling my mother?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. Now the real question: how did you meet Grandma?
Oh, well, Grandma met me before I met her.
Okay.
Sounds about right.
I had just graduated from Wheaton College, and during my last week at Wheaton, I said to myself, I'm going to go back to Baltimore. I'm going to go down to Johns Hopkins Hospital, and I'm going to see if I can find one of the student nurses that I could pursue.
Wait, that's specific?
That's specific?
Yeah.
Why? You just knew you wanted
I
to
don't know. That
nurse?
thought was in my mind.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That is so specific.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a wise plan. Like that's.
A week after I got to Baltimore, back to Baltimore, I found out that InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, which has ministries to universities and to nursing students in their separate locations, in the summertime they were all meeting together in one location for a citywide Bible study. There were maybe 70 or 80 of us that met together. And that first week that I was back, that meeting was at Johns Hopkins Hospital. And it was on the roof of one of the buildings, but it was an enclosed room at the very top of the building. And we had to take the elevator to get there, so I took the elevator up. And when I got to the top, and I'd been there for a few minutes, we were all milling around before the meeting, and I noticed that there was a book table. So I walked over to the book table, and then I noticed the girl who was running the book table. And my focus changed from books to this young lady who was a nursing student at Johns Hopkins.
Hey, meets the requirements.
Yeah. And so we talked for a while, and then I figured, well, I better justify my being here by buying a book. So I bought an InterVarsity Himebook. And
Do you still have it?
I don't think so. I'm afraid.
Okay.
I wish we had, yeah.
My dad would want it.
Yeah.
Collecting hymn books as he does.
Yeah. And Jean, I asked Jean's name, and she told me. The next week, we met at a different location. I drove myself, and Jean drove with a group from the nursing school. And when I saw her that second week, I had forgotten her name, so that was a little bit awkward. But finally,
right? Did you go by Luther Jean or just Jean?
Just
or?
Jean, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just Jean. But eventually I learned her name and didn't forget it. So,
hey, you.
And one thing led to another, yeah.
And what?
Okay,
well,
yeah,
narrows it down significantly.
Yes.
I told you how Mary Love addressed me when I first started trying. So, I think I had gotten Dad's permission to take her out on a date, and it was as soon as I said, "Hey, Mary," and she goes, "Oh, no. If we're gonna do this, you're gonna call me by my actual name." And it's Mary Love, and I was like, "Yes, ma'am." So we
First rule of thumb. Get their name right.
Get the name right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Grandpa, when you said that you were at the book table and you now had to justify I thought you were going to say, I bought every book on the thing. That's what I thought you were going to say.
No. But I had said earlier that Jean met me before I met her.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that we were on the elevator, but I did not see her because she had this box of books, and she was kind of stooping down by the books, and there was enough people in between us so that I did not see her at that point. But she saw me, and I think I'm right in saying that she said to herself at that point, "I'm going to marry that guy."
Hey.
So
That's a family trait, because I saw Rachel and I turned to my buddy and said, "I'm going to marry that girl." The difference is I was joking. So
Mary Love stalked me on Facebook for 2 years.
There you go. Okay, well, so your middle name is, speaking of names, is Schuler.
Schuler.
Correct? Okay,
yes.
and very German.
Very German.
Okay, and the meaning is?
Student.
Oh.
That works.
And it's related to the word scholar.
Oh, even better. Did your parents just know you were going to be a
No,
scholar?
because I don't live up to that name. I have three
Oh.
names, and I don't live up to any of the three names. My names are Thomas, Schuler, Champness. Thomas means twin. I'm not a twin.
Oh, that's funny.
Schuler means scholar, and in comparison to some of the real scholars I've known to be, I am not a scholar. And Champness means, it's French, meaning born in a field. And I was born in a hospital.
Which was built on a field.
Yes, right, yes, yes, all right. So the only part of my name I live up to is the junior at the end.
Okay. The junior.
Yeah.
Oh.